All right, we're back for episode 89 of Digital
hmm
Divination. Jason, it's been a pretty busy Gen Con week, huh?
It's been an exciting weekend. I didn't get to go. I didn't
Me neither.
choose to go, but I am coming to you from a different place, and it's not in Indiana. I'm still in Seattle here. So I got a new gaming computer, and normally I record in the office anyway, which is my bedroom. But someone's using that right now. But this is the old computer in a weird place, basically in my library of board games.
Nice.
And so I am just recording on here until I can get everything off this computer for recycling purposes, just sort of wipe it clean. But I haven't had a chance to do that yet because I'm working on a project on it.
To build the gaming computer or did you buy it?
I bought it. I bought it pre-built, honestly, because I don't know too much. I'm not that kind of a computer gamer,
Oh, well,
honestly.
what?
Sure. I mean, I can tell you it's from Lenovo, and it's one of like their Legion
Oh,
line of
yeah.
computers, and it's pretty nice. I don't quite remember all the specs because I had a friend of mine sort of like say this one looks good, and I was like, all right, good, and then I scooped it.
Desktop or laptop?
A desktop, yeah,
Yeah,
and
no,
I've
the
been
Legions are really that's
yeah,
a good.
yeah, it's
Get
good
a
because I
4000 series video card in it?
think I did, yes, yeah, one of the high ones,
Nice.
one of the high numbers, and one thing that I sort of started playing on it right away is this game from I don't know, maybe earlier this year or late last year called Everspace 2, which is kind of a space combat simulator, and it's been pretty fun. It's basically like an RPG, but instead of a character, you have a ship, and so you're getting upgrades of like different weapons and shields and hull and stuff like that. So it's a great game to be playing now, especially with the announcements coming from Paizo.
I was busy
Oh,
running
you've
games
been
at
busy.
Gen Con.
Mm.
I ran my adventure
Hmm.
for folks at Gen Con. That was really 9 to 12th level adventure and did some HQ. Did something happen at Gen Con?
Oh, I mean, there was a lot of talk about the remaster, a lot of talk about Rage of Elements for Pathfinder, and John. Yeah, well, that's very fun. But
Yeah,
also, the big announcement that we're probably the most interested in is the Starfinder second edition. It's coming. It's on the table now. It's fully announced and on the table.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say I woke up a little late, the keynote, because it started
Mm.
at 7 a.m. our time.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
watched it later.
but at about 7:30, I got it on. And shortly thereafter that, they brought on Thirsty and the Starfinder team.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they announced Starfinder 2.0
Hmm.
coming out 2025, with the
Makes sense.
playtest coming out 2024, the
Right.
field test available now.
That's right. It's a lot of stuff.
And I was surprised.
Good.
Was surprised.
It was that means we kept it secret enough that
Yeah,
you could be
I mean,
surprised
if you
about
think
it.
about it, like about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, you, I, and Ron talked about the future of Starfinder, past, present, and future. And we
Hmm.
thought, in a couple years, we in Starfinder coming out, but
Yeah,
I was thinking maybe we're still 3 years down the road.
I
I think
can
that's what.
imagine. Yeah, I think you did say that. And before I had left and then come back, like about this time last year, there were sort of talks. I mean, was talks about second edition Starfinder like 3 years after it started. Really, like there was a lot of talk like from there, and then that didn't. It wasn't the right time. Last year, it really kind of at the time wasn't the right time, but I think the OGL stuff really fast tracked everything and said, "Okay, well, let's do." We don't want to put out too much more Starfinder under the OGL since we're doing with the remaster project for Pathfinder Second Edition, and so they just were like, "Oh, let's start doing it." So they picked a lane. That was the big thing was just sort of deciding what Starfinder Second Edition would be,
Right.
and then just sort of at this point, sort of with the idea of saying, "Oh, we'll just make it fully compatible with Pathfinder Second Edition, but with its own classes and its own core rule book, I imagine."
Yeah, they
And
said that there
yeah,
would be a core rule book coming out.
yeah,
Right. Well,
yeah.
what's interesting is in the announcement, in the video you see, the very first thing that they show is Starfinder 2.0 and then the 3 action economy.
Sure, yeah. They wanna make sure that you know that this is gonna
Everybody know,
be
okay.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so, that's a driver. And, some people mentioned, um, when Starfinder Enhanced was announced, it was gonna be
Mhm.
like Pathfinder Ultimate. Is that right?
Unchained. Unchained. Yeah.
Pathfinder Unchained. So, it's like Starfinder 1.5 and, um, I I I didn't get quite the sense that was gonna be like that,
No.
you know, but that's what people were talking about, and
Yeah.
can't really say coming out for a couple more months now. Um, but I am excited about 2.0 and them being able to make a lot of big changes, not just the 3 action economy. There's
Mhm.
lots of little niggling errata and,
Yeah.
just thinking about some of the things I know are coming out, Starfinder Enhanced, able to incorporate those and buff them up even more,
Sure,
uh,
yeah.
2nd edition. Um, so I'm pretty excited about that. Now, one of the things I did hear, and, now I can't say who I heard this from,
Mm, okay.
that, so Mechaget, I had heard, and I don't know if this is
Hmm.
sure, and I'm not asking you to confirm this, but
Sure, yeah.
Mechageddon is the first Starfinder AP that's gonna be all in one volume, a book. First one of those coming out.
Yes and no.
Well, the Scoured Stars is different.
Stars is slightly different, right? But it is also
Okay,
that's also gonna be one book, but it is a compilation of
right,
adventures that
but I'm
kind
saying
of works as an adventure path, but it's yeah.
the first one that was developed as a book, right?
Yes, yeah, that's
Because, like, Dead Sons is a book now, I got it,
well,
right?
yes, that's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the first one developed as a book, but and this is the some guessing on my part here, and
Mhm.
it's also the last AP that we're gonna have for comes out next year.
Right.
Um, so I think things are gonna possibly be a little slow,
It's
Starfinder,
possible.
as we get into the playtest next
Yeah.
year,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
as we start moving forward. And maybe even enhanced as the last Starfinder first book?
I don't honestly, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Um, it could
I'm
be,
just
it could
guessing.
not be. I mean, that's the thing, is like the Starfinder team when Pathfinder went from first edition to second edition, there was the design team which was working on that. But in the meantime, there was a lot of people who were developers in the campaign setting line and the player companion line and all those other rule books, who were still making first edition adventure path. They were still
Right,
making adventure content for first edition, right? As a matter of fact, there was a couple points when Rob and Owen had to develop a first edition campaign setting book while also creating Starfinder, like while Starfinder was being created, right?
right,
Um, but the Starfinder team currently, as it stands, doesn't really have that capacity, right?
right.
We've got,
Pretty
you saw the
small.
4 people who were there. I think they're still hiring someone else as well. And then and they need to be sort of on deck for um, making Starfinder Second Edition, right? They need to be putting everything together because the Pathfinder design team is busy doing Pathfinder design, right? But they're still putting out, whatever come, Howl of the Wild still got to come out, whatever comes out after that, whatever comes out, whatever book these new playtest classes that are coming out next month are going to be in.
Right,
Um, those also. So while Jason Bullman and probably Mike Sayer will be helping, right? Who knows? Maybe even me or somebody else, right? Will be helping with the creation of Starfinder Second Edition. There's not a lot of people to be doing first edition stuff still, honestly, right?
right,
Um, so yeah, whether or not they are going to carve out a little bit of time for someone to make another 3 volume adventure path just to as a last hurrah, or a small, maybe another Alien Archive book might be easy to do, or a setting book, another sort of like Ports of Call 2 or something like, something along those lines could be done.
Well,
Um,
and
yeah,
you kinda mentioned that, and I'm just thinking, like Rage of Elements came out, just now, right, recently.
yes,
Pathfinder Remastered's already been announced,
Yeah.
making another setting book doesn't necessarily mean that's something that's going to be strictly just a first edition thing. I could very
True.
well be looking forward and work well with
Right.
second edition
Something
Starfinder as well.
something like, hey, here's Pack World's second edition with little bits of rules elements in it. Not so much as like Rage of Elements, which has
Right,
been full is part of the
right.
fully compatible with the remaster, but like little things that you can put in there, like here's an item, here's a gun. By that point, we might know what all that looks like. Here's what an archetype looks like that you can use, right? We might know those things, um, even because it'll be kind of going concurrently with the playtest of whatever development of that book would be. Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. Um, I think it is though unlikely. Like you said, it's going to be tricky to do that. So we might be seeing the end of the sort of first edition stuff. But all that saying, the Starfinder Enhanced kind of coming out is to sort of tweak the first edition stuff to make it the best it can be. So you can still, if you don't want to join us in second edition, then you can continue playing first edition stuff.
Yeah, and there's still 2 more years before second edition comes out.
Yeah, there's
And
no yeah.
even when it comes out, if you remember when Pathfinder second edition, not everybody jumped on board right away. I mean, there was a whole
Yeah.
lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth at character creation. So,
Some people, yeah. Some people
yeah, for
had
some
that
people,
problem.
not
Yeah.
experts like you, but
Well, I mean, I don't think. Oh, you think because it was hard, character creation was difficult, or was it just that it
yeah,
was different?
it was harder to figure out for some folks.
Okay, fair enough.
But
Well,
now, I
hopefully,
mean, now there's so many tools, and I
yeah.
imagine that these tools will be brought to bear
hmm
for Starfinder second edition, and the fact that it's going to be fully compatible with Pathfinder Mastered. That
Right.
I think it's going to be pretty strict.
What all the Yeah, I think so. All the lessons learned for Pathfinder Remaster are going to be applied to Starfinder Second Edition for like layout and ease of use and stuff like that. I think it's already announced that like Nexus, which
Yes.
is going to have the Starfinder playtest stuff at the very least right off the bat. So you'll be able to make a character in that if you have that. Um, Someone has already taken the field test, which is something we haven't really talked about yet, and put it into Foundry. So
Wow.
yeah, if you want to download that and you play it Starfinder, I don't know if if it's got all the Pathfinder mechanics behind it as well, or if it's just something you can plop into your Pathfinder game. I'd have to look that up. Um, I know for a fact that the week before last, that a couple people just started a Starfinder game. They were just talking about making characters for it, and Joe Piscini's in that. And he's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna have to go back and talk to everybody next week when we finally sit down to actually play." Sorry, well, I knew this was coming, but
Yeah.
can't say anything.
Boy, well, I actually look forward to the full blown plate
Yeah,
running that, and yeah, I hope it gets plugged into Foundry right away. That'll make it
rolling.
fine.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
and at that point, I'll probably move away from Roll20 altogether. So
That's fair.
kind of go if there is really good support on Foundry second, because I they're gonna have remastered already on there, so they have
Yeah,
Starfinder second edition kind of layered in there as well. That'll be really nice, and then we can do all those crossovers we talked about last episode.
true, true, true. And now I want to just sort of say, I knew this was coming before John did. That last episode was actually me wanting to talk about crossovers. We just had the crossover episode of Star Trek
Yeah.
Strange New Worlds, and we just had I was just talking a lot about crossovers with Ryan, and I was just like, it was on my mind. Um, I mean, it didn't hurt that I knew it was coming, but also that the two would be compatible. But yeah,
Now it's so much easier. Yeah,
it'll be so much easier. It'll be so much easier. It'll be still, but it's still like there's still some interesting things that I want to see how they work out. Like, if you look at what we have now is a field test, which is a small slice of the soldier class, which is again
Right.
kind of different. And then a little bit of like here's some gear and here's a couple monsters and here's like all the things you kind of need to do to plug this into the Pathfinder Second Edition chassis and test that out. And they have stuff like the tech trait. And I'm curious about how that's all going to work out altogether. Like, so the compatibility to me is interesting. It's not something that I would do both ways necessarily. wouldn't necessarily take Starfinder stuff and then just plunk it into Pathfinder. But if you're taking Pathfinder Rogue and plopping them into Starfinder, they have access. It's like they have access to the guns and stuff like that. And the way it seems to work, at least right now, is that we look at the laser pistol in the field test as a simple weapon. It is a weapon that wizards have access to, essentially, right?
Oh, a wizard with a laser pistol now.
Laser wizard.
You
Yep.
do something when you run out of spells?
I mean, when are you gonna run out of spells? You always got cantrips. What are you talking about?
That's true.
Yeah.
But
But
you
yeah.
know,
So yeah. Go ahead.
interesting. I was reading through the field test, and one of the things that you mentioned last time was laser wolves.
Oh yeah, I
And
did.
sure enough, the laser wolf, they call it Tashtari, but they could say laser wolf, Tashtari, right? Is is in the field test. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I mean, but the Testari is something that's pretty uniquely. It's pretty Starfindery, right? It's its own thing. It's like
Yeah,
it's not it's not from another. It's not really from another like homage to another sci-fi thing. It's not really taken from like old Pathfinder and ported forward, right? It's just something that I think some point someone said laser wolves and then gave them a
yeah,
sort of a real name, Tashtari, but everyone calls them laser wolves. I don't really remember whether or not it was intended that they only have three legs from the very beginning, or if that was a thing that came through because the art came out weird. I can't remember that, but
so there's
I
actually a
think it
fourth leg that was hidden back there.
maybe I don't know. I think actually was sort of thought about. Oh, they're three-legged wolves with laser chests. Was
Yeah.
pretty from
Oh
the
no,
beginning,
no.
but
I think I just think it's funny because the example you were talking about last time was about the laser wolf,
yeah,
and then they called out specifically laser wolf parenthesis Tashtari
right.
rather than Tashtari describing it as a laser.
As a laser wolf. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I just think it's um yeah, I see, again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Dropping a Starfinder character into a Pathfinder game is
hmm
going to have some interesting issues. Now, if they're fully compatible, that doesn't necessarily mean fully balanced though, right?
well,
So,
yeah, yeah.
like a level 5 soldier dropped in is going to be level 5 equivalent if in the Pathfinder campaign.
I mean, I think that the math is all gonna kind of math out
Yeah.
probably the same. It's built on the same chassis, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be whether or not that's you know how that's going to be the case because what they want is everyone to be able to use all the Pathfinder stuff that already exists extant,
Right.
right? So we can have like, oh, I'm from Eox, I'm just going to play a skeleton. Great, you can do that. So it should be balanced amongst each other. Now, it's going to be weird whether or not you how you do again, like if you back in time, you're there, you've got your big, uh, you know, roto laser, and you're mowing down, you know, uh, kobolds or goblins or whatever. What happens when you run out of batteries? Like that's the balance, I think, and not the balance exactly, but that's going to be the interesting thing for people who want to do this kind of mix and match.
Right.
Um, yeah,
Well, and I don't know that when I'm thinking about this, I'm just thinking about why make it 100% compatible. One of the main things I will say is it makes it really simple. Somebody who's played second edition to jump into Starfinder,
yeah, yeah,
which is
yeah.
not it's not hard now, especially somebody who played Pathfinder first edition to jump into Starfinder. But if you
hmm
only started with second edition and you were to jump in, you had no knowledge of D&D 2.0 or first edition Pathfinder, it would seem kind of foreign to you. Go along with second edition, it's going to become even more distant. So I think
hmm
making that compatibility just makes ease of transition between the games a lot easier, which I like a lot because I know a lot of people that play both, but some that
hmm
only play one or the other because of those.
Yeah, I mean that's true. It's true. Um, I mean, even if you're not a new person, right? There was that moment at the very beginning of us playing To Defy the Dragon where I went the first fight. I was like, well, I'll just go here, shoot a couple times, and then
Yeah,
move again. And then I can't do that. This is
right.
not second edition Pathfinder. It's gotten into my brain so much that I was thinking, oh, it'll be really great. It's gonna be so awesome. I'm gonna do all this pistol stuff. Um, and then, but it didn't happen, obviously. So it'll definitely make things a lot easier when you're, if especially in that time when there's, if there is, and again, I don't know anything about this, but if there is ever a Paizo book adventure path, for instance, that does 3 volumes in Pathfinder, story moves on to 3 volumes in Starfinder, right? And the stories connect in some way. That makes the things for anyone working on that, right? Maybe it's one developer is doing it all, or two developers, one from each team. But like whoever's doing that, well, they have a common language now, right? And it can talk and don't have to switch gears. It's going to be so much better for Paizo's editors in a lot of ways,
Yes.
right? They're going to have to remember, oh, obviously there's going to be some sort of computer skill in Starfinder, right? There has to be. We can't just use the same skills from Pathfinder. That's going to be a little different. But for the most part, it's going to be, the language is going to be very much the same when talking about mechanics of things, and whether or not you can say like, oh, I can look at something and be like, well, that doesn't make any sense that should do this much damage, or that should have this kind of a bonus. You don't have to worry about that. It's going to make things a lot easier for a lot of us in a lot of ways.
Right. And the other thing, in terms of creatures, right? So many people were having to try to build a stat block for a Pathfinder creature into
Mm-hmm.
Starfinder if they wanted to use it. Now you take it, drop it in,
You just drop it in. Yeah, I mean,
or vice versa. Huh?
the thing about Starfinder was meant you were like, we had all these bestiaries, and can you take them, and you should be able to use them, and that's why we have that chapter in the back of the book that says how to
Right.
convert these things. Make sure to say this is touch classes EAC and whatever, right? But the math was never super solid when you did that. It was just sort of like a kludge, honestly. And that's why nearly every chance I get, if there was something that I enjoyed from Pathfinder First Edition, I would convert it to a second Starfinder monster in like the back of an AP. That's why there's the Death Cruiser, which is the Death Coach, essentially, right? There's a couple uh, 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 um, a couple undead monsters that are fun. The Lovelorn, that I like. The Uri, which is essentially based on the Ghost from the Ring anyway, should have been should be in Starfinder, right? That's the type of thing. She's got to come out of your monitor at you. It's pretty creepy. But and then make up new stuff too. It's sort of the mix of the two. But like, yeah, the conversions was always like, not quite there.
The other thing that I wonder is with spellcasters being able to go to max level in Starfinder,
Yeah,
how powerful is that going to be? Is that just going to scale up how
it's
powerful the spellcasters Starfinder are overall, or what?
I don't. I mean, it's going to be different. All of this is going to feel different, honestly. Right? I mean, you look at the soldier field test. It is not the same class as the soldier from
No,
Starfinder
it's a
First
lot
Edition,
different.
right? It's a lot different. So there's going to be a lot of base assumptions made that are going to, be twisted in whatever way. Whatever spellcasting class is, the Mystic, we know that's coming, right? However, that's going to work. Its base abilities are going to be in line with the fact that it has 10 levels of spellcasting, 10 ranks of spellcasting. So yeah, it's not going to feel like, oh no, they got it so overpowered. It's going to be, they feel like spellcasters, I'm sure, right? There's going to be something, probably some focus stuff, whatever they do with
Right,
connections to turn them into like how domains work.
right.
Um, Probably like that. I mean, that being said, I know a little bit more than that. And they're what they're doing is what they've said, and what they did. They're not just doing the Mystic is just the cleric, but in space, right? It's they're taking the Mystic and doing something completely different with it, so that it can stand alongside the cleric in the same party and not feel like the same thing.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it'll be cool to see that. And as you kind of alluded to with bringing a rogue in, I think bringing able to bring your Pathfinder character in Starfinder, especially at a higher level. Oh man, what about org play? How crazy would
W
that be?
well, who knows, right? Well, here's the
Wow.
I don't think the thing people so there's the talk about compatibility, which is
Yeah.
using Pathfinder stuff in Starfinder, like taking what that means to me is from scratch. I'm making a character or I'm leveling up a Starfinder character. I have the option of taking an archetype from Secrets of Magic, for instance, and applying that to my Starfinder character. I can use the rogue class. I can take the Poppet ancestry and use it in Starfinder. Crossovers like taking your Pathfinder character and then taking it to a Starfinder game, I don't I think needs to be handled more delicately than just doing it. I think there's
It
a
would be
little
so much fun.
Would
Good.
I don't I mean, it could be fun, but it could also kinda
Yeah.
stink,
Yeah.
because you will be like, "I've got 2 sword I show up in, you know, I show up on Akaton. I've got 2 swords, and everyone else has got laser pistols. What do I do? I have a bunch of gold. Great, gold doesn't mean anything in the future. We go by credits now." Like, so I mean, there's have to be some considerations taken into account, honestly, and I think there's a little I'll be honest, like, there's but the messaging of how this is going, um, might need to be watched for them to say
Yeah.
that. Oh, so
Yeah.
people aren't expecting to show up at a Pathfinder organized play game with a Starfinder character.
Yeah. I actually saw Jessica, no, I'm sorry, Jenny
Mm,
Karzabski post one of the Gen Con for 100% compatibility can many things.
yes, so I think
Yes.
going forward, I think we need to be a little more careful about
Yeah.
what managing people's expectations on what that means.
But having a core engine runs both of them,
Hmm.
being able to understand what what it means to build a character, level a character, gain
Exactly.
experience, to
Hmm.
take actions, get feat, go feats, ancestry, all that stuff.
Hmm.
Like for me, I play a lot of Starfinder, not so much second edition. I had to figure out what all that meant and translate it in
Hmm.
my own
Hmm.
brain going to second edition. And now you don't have to do that. It's same language, just
Yeah.
different application. Like
Yeah.
language, to learn psychology and learn sociology, they're related, but they're not 100%. There's some overlap,
Yeah.
but it's not there. So I
Yeah.
think it's kind of more akin to something.
That's an apt metaphor, indeed.
Well, I look
It's
forward to that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, there are other RPG companies out there that have basically done this in a lot of ways. Like, you take a system that's good and you use it and just sort of apply a different coat of paint to it to make it a new game, essentially.
Well, I will say that I right now I'm working on a project for Everyday Heroes that basically
Ooh,
does that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So basically D20 modern for 5e.
Fun.
So kind of interesting because I play some 5e, not a ton.
Hmm.
And as I'm working on this, I don't really have to know the complete 5e engine, how it all works, in order to do the part that I'm working on. I just
Great.
part. So
Yeah, that's great. Great. Well, let us know when that comes out so we can talk about it more.
yeah, it's well, it's book's been announced. It hasn't been announced. I'm working on it,
Hmm. Fair enough.
that kind of thing. Probably I think it's
But
Jan.
fair enough. Still, though, diligent listeners out there can look at all the everyday hero books that have been announced and speculate on which
Oh,
one
yeah, yeah,
John
then
is
they'll
working
find
on.
out. One of the things I will say
Mhm,
is part of my research that I've been doing, I went
mhm.
book shopping and I found
Ooh,
two. I found this book in the
hey, there it
wild.
is in the wild. Love it.
Yeah. So at a bookstore, a very tiny bookstore, and they had like no Starfinder, but they had
Yeah.
GI Joe, the role playing game from Essence 20,
Well, maybe someone who
or actually Renegade, Essence
buys
20
that
system.
books. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe someone who buys the books for that shop enjoys GI Joe.
yeah, yeah. They had several. They had this and like a one bundle with a game master screen and a couple other
Yeah, yeah,
things.
yeah.
I just needed the
Fair.
parts of it. see, because it's set in kind of modern day, and these are everyday
Yeah,
heroes, and I just want to see what no what this system does. For
there you
actually,
go.
picked up a couple other books for other systems.
Nice.
So yeah, so it's fun. Anyway, so that was the big exciting news. Um,
Mhm.
it's nice. I know on No Direction, the usually very quiet Starfinder chat channel blew up,
Mm.
and it's been pretty active since.
I lost a lot of my Thursday morning to watching the keynote, talking to people about Starfinder Second Edition, chatting a little bit about some of the people are like, well, what are these new classes going to be announced for Pathfinder Second Edition? I was like, well, I can't tell you, but as was said, they're not anything from Pathfinder First Edition, that's for sure. Um, and because something else got announced at Gen Con from my old job that I did a little bit of work on that is not coming out again, also not coming out until next year, which is the Welcome to Night Vale role playing game. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I did not. Wow.
I have been holding on to that secret for a year for sure. And That's going to be pretty interesting. I'm curious now because it wasn't done when I left, so I'm curious to know how
Probably
that's
not
going
done
to turn
either.
out.
It's being
It's probably
released.
still not done. No, I'm sure, but it was just sort of announced. It was the very light information, very little information. Just like, hey, it's said in the Welcome to Night Vale universe. It's being made by Renegade. That's all. So
Wow.
I'm gonna keep an eye on
There
that,
could
and
be
I'll.
crossovers with My Little Pony. That
I mean, maybe if they're using us in 20, I don't know.
oh. No, it's interesting. I was watching, looking at social media, and see so many people Gen Con posting pictures.
Mhm.
It makes me really want to. I'm planning on going next year already,
Okay, fair.
and I'm excited that the Starfinder playtest will be launching
Yeah,
next year, and hopefully
that'll
something
be good.
happens at Gen Con.
I'm sure. I'm sure they'll probably do a little bit of demo space, right? Got to do that. Probably have a Starfinder. I did they do for the Pathfinder playtest? Did they do like a special Pathfinder Society thing? I don't think they did.
For one.
But there was an extra. I mean, there was the Doomsday Dawn adventure, which was a playtest adventure. So maybe they'll do another thing like that. I don't know. There's some people who are concerned that the Pathfinder. I've heard people say that the Pathfinder Second Edition playtest kind of hurt the the thing because so much got changed. There's a lot of stuff
Yeah.
in the playtest that is not in the second edition
Right.
that is
Right.
for the better for the game obviously, and people saw the playtest and was like, no, I don't like this, I don't like this, and decided not to look at the final product, unfortunately. And the Doomsday Dawn adventure was also very strange because it was sort of like, now you're ninth level, now you're 13th level, just do this. It was very rigid, but interesting. It was an interesting experiment for sure.
Well, the whole playtest was somewhat rigid. Like certain
Yeah.
times they wanted you to play certain levels, go through certain things and
Right. Yeah.
feedback on that. And kind of the nature of testing. And I've been in
Right.
alpha
Yeah.
testing for video games. Like
Mm,
it's not like you get to play a pre-release version. You're just like,
sure.
we want to test this one mechanic. You send your massive horde over here 20 times in a row to see
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's what's going to be interesting about these Starfinder field tests because they're going to be releasing little chunks that they people can test out and give some feedback on early on before the huge info dump of a playtest.
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'm posing now. I don't know. Does Pathfinder Infinite and Starfinder Infinite, will Pathfinder Remastered and Starfinder 2.0 fall under that as well?
Oh yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
Yeah. For
we
sure.
should be prepping, learn everything we can prior to the release of Starfinder Second Edition, so that as soon as it goes final, we can release all our Infinite stuff. Boom,
Sure. What do you got
because
in
there won't be
mind?
a ton of
Let me know.
content out there
Yeah, there
initially.
won't be. Yeah. Yeah. We'll do an adventure or something.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
always easy to do.
making plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, do a
Yeah.
conversion of an AP.
Ooh. Oof.
Could do that.
Yeah, you could try. it would be difficult. I
Well,
mean, there.
under Infinite, I
It,
don't know if you could convert a whole AP under it.
oh, that's a good point. There's people who put out versions of conversions for first edition stuff that hasn't already been second editioned. So, but I don't know what those look like, honestly. I've never done
Yeah,
one before.
no. It's just compared to second edition, I don't remember the playtest for second edition came more as a surprise.
Hmm.
And then the launch was over a year afterwards, or was it just a year?
I want to say it was only a year, but I'm not
And now we have
sure. It
like a
could have been more than 1
2 year
year.
lead
Yeah.
on it. And I'm almost wondering what precipitated announcing it so soon before the actual.
I can speculate. Again, I don't know for sure. Because of the orc stuff
Yes,
and the remaster stuff happening, I think it was just a sort of like, well, this is happening. People know that the remaster is happening. People are going to want to know what's happening with Starfinder, and because it's going to take these 2 years to kind of hammer all this out, like you said, there's not going to be a lot of Starfinder content,
right,
probably. So people would be, I don't, we, they don't want people to get, not, hey, don't worry. Starfinder, I think people were already a little bit worried about Starfinder before this announcement. Like, through most of this year, they were like, well, we haven't heard about what's coming out after Skyward Stars or Mechageddon. No, there's no real announcement there. Mechageddon was supposed to actually come out probably like this fall,
yes,
originally. And then that got pushed next year. Skyward Stars got pushed a little further. It was supposed to be out. I think it was supposed to be out already, or was going to be a Gen Con book, got pushed, right? And so people were a little concerned. They were like, "Well, hold on, but don't worry, we're doing stuff. It's just that what we're doing is second edition."
yeah. No, as soon as they announced they were going to do as soon as the remastered thing was going to happen for Pathfinder, I was guessing that mastering was going to work. Second edition coming out for Starfinder.
Mhm.
I actually messaged some people that I thought might be working on.
Hmm.
Told them I would love to get on the ground floor of working on. Um, didn't hear back.
Yeah,
Hear back. I'll just tell everybody that I'm working
yeah,
on it. Um, but I also realized everybody's really busy with everything. Probably
yes,
everything was in house.
yeah. I mean, probably most of it's going to be in house. I don't know. I mean, I know not the original first edition Starfinder was a little other people farmed
Right.
out to do it. Um, but I think second edition Pathfinder was like 95% in house, maybe even
As
100%
far as I
in
know,
house.
yeah.
Yeah. So, whatever. But will be the need for people to start working on this for the whatever comes out right after. We might need, we're gonna need an Alien Archive. We're gonna need
Oh
some
yeah.
adventures. And I
I'm
know the way the
excited to
Paizo
get on the
works.
ground floor of that.
Yeah,
Being
they want in
established
on that.
Starfinder
Hmm.
freelancer already and to be
Sure.
able to jump in the beginning things, that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. It's exciting times.
Well, we didn't talk real specific about the field test or anything. I think,
Yeah.
especially as more comes out, that's something we could touch more upon. But I think
Sure. Yeah.
in general, talking about the import of this new thing that's happening and some of the implications for it has been
Hmm.
really good.
Yeah. I'm. It's a whole thing. It's a whole new day. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Jason.
No.
This is good, and I'm wondering if you're happy to not be on the Starfinder team.
I mean, it's a lot of stress. I'm sad, right, that I don't get to be,
Yeah.
not to say that I won't get to work on it. I might not, I don't know. But I'm not on the team, so probably not. I have my own stuff to do. But I'm excited for it to be happening, right? I'm thrilled that these people, this is a basically an entirely different group of people, with the small exception of Thirsty, who was basically there in the organized play from the beginning,
Right.
who are coming into Starfinder, and we're gonna get their fresh takes on it. We're gonna get their fingerprints on it and see how it turns out, because it's gonna be, in a lot of ways, kind of a different game.
Oh, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm John.
And I'm Jason, and this has been Digital Divination.